They're discussing purpose, wisdom, what's happening, what's my purpose. So you see, with Vedic knowledge, what happens is it's very much based on questions and answers. So there's a book called the Bhagavad Gita, and that's based on questions and answers. So there's one passage in the Bhagavad Gita where there's 7 multiple layers of questions and answers happening. So there's a conversation about another conversation, about another conversation, about another conversation, and it happens over 7 times. You've seen that in movie Inception. So this is the original Inception, conversation, conversation, conversation. And actually it's amazing because Vedic knowledge is based on questions and answers. If you go to many other institutes or many other religions, you don't see that happening. You don't see a question and answer session happening. And this is the thing I loved about the Bhagavad Gita and love about coming to these kind of events, is that you're encouraged to ask questions. You're encouraged to think. You're encouraged to challenge. And that's how you actually learn, and that's how the nectar is churned. And you can see from the example. Now, what's quite telling is the type of questions that we ask. So in the Bhagavad Gita, you got 2 conversations happening. One is an inner dialogue and one is an outer dialogue. Now the inner dialogue is essentially talking about people and events. The outer dialogue is talking about people and events. So Dhritarashtra asks, what is happening with my sons and what is happening in the battlefield? Simultaneously, with Arjuna, he's asking, what's my purpose? What's wisdom? What's happening? Now it's interesting, in our lives, we spend a lot of time thinking and talking about people and events, right? Who's talked about, I guess maybe I should get a show of hands, who's talked about people or events today? Or read about, or talked about, or seen about? Okay, pretty much everyone in the room. We open our phones, we hear about people and events. We talk to our friends, we talk to our family, what are we talking about? People and events. It's got pretty interesting, right? When you open the newspaper now, what's Kim Kardashian wearing today? Or how much weight has this celebrity put on? Or what are they doing on a yacht? You see so much of these news stories happening, and it's just very much about people and events. Maybe you've heard of this saying. They say small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss wisdom. So this is why we're here today, to discuss wisdom, and this is Wisdom Talks. So we want everyone to start thinking about how you can discuss wisdom day to day in your life. And what happens is, when you discuss wisdom and you put that at the center of your life, you start seeing people and events completely differently. So that same people and events that you view and discussed, you will start viewing it through the eyes of wisdom. And when you see it through the eyes of wisdom, your perspective completely changes. How you see a situation is going to be completely different to how you used to see it before, right? Completely new perspective, completely new lens, and it actually opens up your mind to something completely new, something you maybe have never seen it in that perspective before. This is, I guess, what we call paradigm shifts, right? So this is what's happening in the Bhagavad Gita. We're seeing 2 conversations and we're seeing that paradigm shift. And this is why this book is so amazing, and it's so central to us really kind of connecting with that wisdom. So you can see here, this is the Bhagavad Gita. And we normally use the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I just wanted to just share why this book is so special. You can see in this book, there is a translation. There is a Sanskrit. Anybody can read Sanskrit here? Okay, one person.
I read but I can't understand everything.
Okay, you can read it but can't understand it. Okay, good. I mean, not good, but none of us can either. So yeah, what's amazing about this book is Srila Prabhupada, who is the author of Bhagavad Gita as it is, he's taken the Sanskrit and he's then translated it to us in English so we can read that Sanskrit. He's then done a word-for-word translation. So every word is translated directly. And then he's put it into a sentence that we can understand. So we understand the meaning behind it. And then what's more amazing is he's actually given us a purport. So he explains what the Bhagavad Gita is saying and what meaning we can understand from it. And he's actually taken that from 15 different commentaries. So he would stay up every night till actually he would sleep 2 hours a day. And during that time, in the night when everyone's sleeping, he would be doing this translation, taking it from all different commentaries. So what we have in this book and the wisdom we're teaching is a very solid narration and a solid idea of what that wisdom is trying to tell us. And what's amazing is you would normally not get access to this unless you were in the Himalayas or you were somewhere, a yogi somewhere. You wouldn't get access to this information. But Srila Prabhupada has made it accessible for each and every one of us. On our mobile phones we can access it, or we can get a book. And we kind of learn together. So I'll do a little quiz, just test your knowledge on the Bhagavad Gita. Who knows how many years ago it was spoken?
5,000.
Any guesses?
5,000?
5,000? Okay, good. So 5,000 years old? Okay, perfect. How many verses are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 700? Good. Okay, good. How many chapters are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 18. Okay, good. How many topics are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 5. Good. Yeah, you get a cake at the end. Okay, good. How many yogas are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 3. Perfect. Thank you. And what's the one goal of the Bhagavad Gita? Anyone guess? It's the theme of today. It's to help us think. Now, the goal of the Bhagavad Gita is help us think and rethink our life. So today you had that discussion, you had a question today. Name a moment where you had to rethink life, right? And maybe somebody might have shared a moment where you had to rethink life, where you had to rediscuss, or your mind had to rethink about how you see things, how you perceive things. And that's essentially what the Bhagavad Gita does. It helps you rethink life and the way you see the world. Now there's 2 ways that can help us rethink life, okay? One is through frustration, and the other is through inspiration, okay? So frustration, maybe some of you might have experienced it, but you feel frustrated, things aren't the same, maybe something happens, a life event happens, and then you turn to the book. You actually realize you go back to the drawing board. Okay, this isn't what I was supposed to be. It could be a death in the family, a divorce, a breakup, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a job, somebody ate your sandwich, whatever, it could be something that helps you rethink life. I said I'm not going to make any jokes today, so I'll
Why?
I'll try and keep it a bit more serious. Okay, so, but actually, what the Bhagavad Gita does is actually gives inspiration. So, what would you rather trigger you or be the catalyst for your rethinking of life? Frustration or inspiration? Inspiration, yeah. So what happens is the book has so much wisdom and knowledge that it's pre-telling you what's going to happen in your life. And if you don't do these things, then you're going to face frustration. So it's better to learn it through inspiration rather than frustration. And they say, if you want a new idea, then read an old book. So this is the old book we're reading. This is the oldest of oldest books. And the way we're going to share it to you today is we've looked at 8 of the topmost things that are on people's minds today. Right now, what are the 8 things that are on most people's minds out there? What everybody is thinking about. And it's actually all contained in the Bhagavad Gita. So we've divided it into 8 sections, and each chapter, each section, we're going to be continuing and showing you how the Bhagavad Gita helps us rethink life. And there's many ways to learn the Bhagavad Gita. There's many ways to actually reflect on it. But with this way, it's going to actually help you open up. And we're just scratching the surface, but hopefully it helps you rethink. Now, one thing I can guarantee you, anything you can think of, any sphere, any problem, any trouble, within any culture, any part of life, any discussion is contained in the Bhagavad Gita. So whatever you are facing, you can find answers to in this book. I can guarantee that. It's actually there. Now, many of us have read many self-help books and spiritual books, and maybe there's some popular ones right now. What's some of the popular books out there that you've read or maybe you've connected with? Maybe you want to shout out some names that you've resonated with?
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits?
5 AM Club.
5 AM Club, yeah.
Power of Now.
Power of Now, about Eckhart Tolle, yeah. Any more?
What about Ramayana?
Ramayana, yeah. Any more?
Power of subconscious mind.
Power of Subconscious Mind, yeah.
Life after death?
Life After Death, good.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, okay. By Robert, yeah. So here's some of the ones that I came up with. So there's The Secret. So Rhonda Burns said, if you manifest, then the universe manifests things. And she came up with that idea. Then you got Robin Sharma, who sold his Ferrari and he became a monk. And he's showing about his journey about materialism and not needing things. Then Atomic Habits, somebody mentioned, a very nice book, how you can integrate habits into your life. And then this is a really nice one, I really like this, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he looked at, how we look at time and a time management matrix and putting the end in mind. And really interesting book, I really like it myself. So all of these books, and Saj mentioned Power of Now, everything that's contained in this book, or any of these books, you'll find in the Bhagavad Gita. So the origins of any of these books come from the Bhagavad Gita. And that's guaranteed. I can when you read it, when you understand it, when you compare it, and even Stephen Covey, he actually admits that a lot of his teachings came from the Bhagavad Gita. He actually says that. And even the Power of Now references the Bhagavad Gita a lot. So one thing I can say is you're very fortunate to be able to connect with this book and actually connect with the original source, which is this Bhagavad Gita. So right, let's get into it. So let's get into the Bhagavad Gita and we'll go through the 8 points, the 8 things that most people think about. The first one is redefining success. So the first message we learn about the Bhagavad Gita is redefining what actual success is. In society today, what is considered success?
Making money.
Making money, yeah. What else?
Getting fame.
Getting fame, yeah. Anything else?
Having a house.
Having a house, yeah. A big house, depending how many bedrooms you have, and owning a house, yeah.
Big car.
A big car.
Job title.
A job title, yeah.
Followers.
Followers, yeah, on Instagram. How many do you have, Saj?
Not enough.
Not enough.
How many holidays you've had?
How many holidays?
One act.
Yeah. How many countries you've travelled? What's your bucket list? How many countries you did?
Material possessions.
Material possessions, yeah. How much do you own? Bank balance and stuff. Any more?
External beauty.
External beauty, yeah.
How well your children are doing.
Yeah, how well your children are doing. Good. So actually we're told a lot of these things are success. We hear from Jim Carrey. I think everyone should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. And Arjuna comes to a similar conclusion. Does somebody want to volunteer and read the verse at the top?
Ah,
Yeah? Anyone? Yeah.
I can find no means to to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I'll not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven.
So Arjuna is saying actually, like, even if I have the best kingdom, I would not be happy. For me, that's not success. So this is the first thing we're actually understanding is from the Bhagavad Gita and from Arjuna is success isn't based on material things, right? He's actually making this point, and this is the first lesson we need to understand. It's actually the biggest lie that you're told in society, that if you get material things, you're successful. If you get material things, you're happy. That's a lie. Like, it's not gonna make you happy. Like wake up. It's reality. You know, whatever that thing is you're chasing in your mind. Maybe think about that thing you're chasing right now in your mind. That's right at the forefront. It's not gonna make you happy when you achieve it. Because what happens is, when you do get it, you're hankering for it. So all the time you're upset and depressed. Actually, I really want this thing. I really want this thing. And I'm not getting it. And I'm frustrated because I didn't get it. And then you get it. And then you realize actually it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Right? Maybe you've had that experience before. But you achieve it and then actually what? Is that it? Is that what it was supposed to be? And even if you get it and it gives you that euphoria for some time, it's temporary. You know, you buy a new car, it feels new, it feels great. 6 months later, it's just your car. You know, you move into a house, it feels nice, it feels fresh, and it's just your house, right? Like, or it's that job, whatever it is, it's temporary. You lose it, or that relationship. Feels good at the beginning, right? And then what? But even if it feels good, and it continues to feel good, there's always a duality. There's a sacrifice that you have to pay for it. So it's good, you get it, but then sometimes you have to, it comes with the bad as well. So even though it's positive now, but it always comes with a negative part as well. You know, like your perfect partner will come with great qualities, but also have negative qualities. You know, I don't know, they snore at night time. Anybody's partner snore at night time? Okay, a few. But yeah, this is the reality. So none of these things can make us happy. But real success is defined in spirituality. So when you are spiritual, when you see things from a spiritual perspective, when you see the vision is spiritual, then you actually realize what is real success. Success is based on spirituality. And once we have that consciousness, we redefining what actual success is. Yeah.
Sorry. Would you not say that to understand happiness is you need to feel sad to begin with?
Say that again, sorry?
So my question is, would you not say to understand happiness, to actually feel and know what happiness is, you need to experience sadness? Isn't being sad important? Because only then you know what the contrast of happiness is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like you need to know the low so you know the high.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Vedas, the Bhagavatam explains that in this world, when we experience happiness, it's actually not happiness. It's just a temporary suffering, temporary relief from the suffering. Right? So what you're experiencing isn't happiness. But your identity is to experience happiness. Because as the soul, you're such it ananda, you're full of knowledge, full of bliss. So your actual innate nature is to be happy. That's your natural position. But because you're in this material world, you feel the negativity, you feel the energies, you feel the because you're not situated correctly, right? Because you're not in your natural state. And I'll explain this in the second point as I'm going along. The second thing that we hear from Arjuna is, okay, you're saying spirituality, but to know about spirituality, what's the most important relationship that we have? with who? With ourself. Yeah, so what is ourself? Who is ourself? And we hear, we see so many people being inauthentic. Inauthenticity is such a thing happening right now, right? We have so many masks, so many different layers that we have. This is a nice quote. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to change you is the greatest accomplishment. How can we be ourselves? Right? We have to identify who ourself is first. Who are you? And this is the second message we hear from the Bhagavad Gita, is you're not this body, you're the soul. And as the soul, you're eternally happy. So that's our composition. But because we're entangled in this material world, that's causing our suffering. So somebody want to read this next verse? I just want to keep it interactive, and I think it's nice for everyone to read a verse from the Gita. Any takers? Yeah, Sarge, 3, yeah, go on.
Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent material body there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change.
Thank you. Yeah, so the soul is there. Now what happens is when you get a material body, two things happen. When the soul gets that contamination, two things happen. One is you get upadhis, which is a Sanskrit word for designations. And the second thing you get is anarthas, which means unwanted qualities, like lust, anger, greed, envy. And upadhi means designation. So, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm white, I'm tall, I'm slim, I'm fat. All of these things are material designations. I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, I'm an actor, I'm a businessman, whatever. These things are temporary designations. What happens is when you get these temporary designations, you misidentify who you really are, right? You disconnect from your actual true self. In reality, you are none of these things, you're the soul. And it's really interesting actually, because when you see that you're the soul, you realize not just you are the soul, but the person I'm speaking to is also the soul, right? So yes, they might have like, certain qualities, certain things that they're bringing out, like maybe there's anger, maybe there's lust, maybe there's greed, but actually they're just a soul. But first we start with ourselves. Actually, I'm just a soul. I have all of these contaminations. I have all of these things I'm working on, and they're coming up. But really, I'm just a soul. Like, that's all I am. I'm just a soul. I'm just an eternal being. And my natural state is to be full of knowledge, full of bliss, and eternal. And I'm part and parcel of God. So when we appreciate that and realize that, then you can actually start seeing things and understanding life in a different perspective. So this is the first lesson that we learn from the Gita is, your true identity. Okay, so you've understood, what is true success? And you know that true success is spiritual. But to be spiritual, you need to know yourself, which is a soul. So you have identified that. But how do you then live in this world? Right? Because you all have jobs, you all have careers, you all have children, some of you have partners and family and stuff. So how do you live in this world? So what we hear from the Bhagavad Gita is this concept of karma yoga. Right? Karma yoga is basically performing your action but being detached from the outcome. This is the essence of karma yoga. Gandhi, he says, a burning passion compelled with absolute detachment is the key to success. Right? So performing the action, right, with complete, full concentration, doing your duty, but equally being detached. Many of us are doing jobs or doing activities, but we're attached to them. Right? Why are you so attached? Right? Because you haven't understood that karma yoga, because you're not responsible for the result. You're hankering for the result constantly, oh please, I wish this thing comes through, I wish that thing comes through, oh I lost my job, oh this thing happened to me, oh someone said this to me, oh I tried really hard for this exam but it didn't work, or I tried really hard for this interview, it didn't work. but it's not in your hands. So the Gita says, maybe somebody wants to read this one out. Yeah, no.
Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme.
Thank you. So yeah, karma yoga is, yeah.
If you don't feel attached to whatever you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you may not do with full heart and full duty.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you are expecting to have a good result because
Yeah.
you're working hard.
Yeah.
So how would you not expect?
How do you not expect the result? Yeah. So, what you have to do, and I'll explain this, thanks for asking that question, it actually comes up here. So what you have to do is not be attached to the result, but equally give your full attention and concentration to what you're doing. And I'll explain how. So Arjuna is basically saying, I'm all of these material things. I'm a husband, I'm a warrior, I'm a king, I'm a father. So he has all of these material designations. So how can you connect that with spirituality? So how can you be detached from it? How can you say, oh, I'm spiritual, but also I'm all these things? Maybe you might think for your life as well, how can I be spiritual, but also work in the world? You know, we normally compartmentalize our spirituality, like, I'll do my service, or I'll do my, think Gita talk from 7 to 9, but when I go back home, I'm back into the real world, so I'm not so spiritual then. Go back into reality, it's not so practical. What Krishna says is actually, because you are spiritual and you're the soul, you can merge these two things, right? Life is about living both of these things simultaneously, and the perfection of life is when you can do both. So you can be a husband, but be a spiritual husband. You can be a warrior, but fight for a spiritual cause. You can be a king, but be a spiritual king. You can be a father, but look at parenthood through spirituality. So all of these things require the same amount of effort, if not more, right? So you put the same amount of effort into this, if not more, but equally you're detached from what's happening. You're detached from the outcome because you're not in control. So we have to give the same amount of intention. What is our intention? When we are looking at the roles in our life, what's my intention? Is it a spiritual intention? Is it a colored intention? Is it not a good intention? So question yourself. What's my intention? Then, how much attention am I giving to this thing? How much concentration how much am I really putting into being a father? How much am I really putting into this material service I'm doing? So you have to give it your full attention and perform the right action. But equally, once you've done these things, you need to be detached. Detached from the result. So give attention, give the right intention, perform the right action, but be detached. Okay, so we've learned these three things. So what's success? You're the soul. Performing karma yoga, so being detached from the outcome. But there's this thing called the mind, right? The mind is a very tricky thing, right? It's like mental health is like one of the biggest things right now, right? Everybody is depressed, right? I'm not going to ask who's been depressed, but I'll put my hand up. I guess in some way, shape or form, everyone's gone through depression, in some way, shape or form, to different degrees, right? But we've all been there. And the mind is such a interesting thing. And the Bhagavad Gita addresses the mind, right? It talks about the mind. All problems are illusions of the mind. And what the mind does, it creates reality, but it can also transcend reality, right? So your mind can create the reality, sometimes we make up things in our mind that are true, but aren't true, right? But our mind can actually transcend that reality. And the Bhagavad Gita talks about how the mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy, right? Somebody want to read this verse out? It's very nice.
For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
Yeah. So you can be your best friend or worst enemy, right? And what we can compare the mind to is actually like a web browser. Okay? So, it could be any web browser here. You've got Google, you've got, Firefox or whatever, Safari, you have your web browser. And the web browser is like your mind, like the default of your mind, right? So when you wake up, right, what is your default? What's your homepage? Okay, what is the natural tendency that you think of? What is your natural thought patterns? Okay, so you wake up with that web browser, okay? And then every homepage, like the homepage isn't the mind, remember? The homepage is set by yourself, right? So it naturally comes up. But it's not actually the browser, it's just the homepage, right? So you wake up with a certain homepage. And every homepage has favorites, right? Every browser has favorites, right? So things you like, things that you gravitate towards. Sometimes your favorites are good things, sometimes your favorites are bad things. Who has favorites that are bad things? Okay, maybe everyone. Things that aren't good for us, but sometimes they are in our favorites. There's good things in there as well. The mind also has history, previous imprints, previous experiences, previous things that have happened in our life, right? So we all have a history, we all have imprints, and the mind is so powerful that it actually imprints everything that we take in. Every experience we have, every holiday we've been to, every positive, every negative, it has that imprint. It also has autocompletes, triggers, things that are happening in our life that we see actually, no, it must be this. We jump to conclusions. We jump to triggers. The homepage can be changed. So when you wake up in the morning, your default setting, that homepage, it can be changed. Your consciousness, your waves of thinking can be changed. Your favorites can be changed. You can delete the favorites that are not good for you, right? And you can keep the favorites that are favorable, that are good for you. Your history can be changed. The more spiritual experiences that you have, the more spiritual events you come to, the more spiritual people you hang out with, the bad things go below the pecking order, right? Like, when you open up the favorites, the list is there, right? The latest one is at the top, the oldest one's at the bottom. So your history can be changed.
I find difficult to stop thinking negative things of the past.
Yeah, it is. How do you do that? Yeah, so the Gita explains that even when you have all of these things, you can change it through abhyas, through practice, through meditation, through chanting, through association. The mind can be changed, but you have to put in the work. So the mind is actually not conscious in itself, right? The mind can be steered. Just like the homepage, it facilitates for you to go in a certain place. You put in the address. You put in where you want to go, right? So that's the mind. You can put in where you want to go. You can put in what experiences you have, but you have to put that in. You have to type it in. Meditation, think Gita, whatever it is you want to put in. So you can do that. So it is possible. However, you get pop-ups, right? You get things that just come up in your mind randomly out of nowhere, and that trigger just happens. But what we have to do is ignore the pop-ups. You have to ignore that feeling. Don't identify with the mind. Identify the mind. Separate yourself from the mind. You're not the mind. If you practice meditation long enough, if you do it sincerely enough, if you concentrate enough, you can detach yourself from the mind, and you can actually start observing your thoughts. You can actually start observing, because what will happen is many situations will happen in your life that are repeated. Same things will trigger you. Same people will trigger you. Same message will trigger you. Right? But when you identify with them, when you identify away from the mind, no, this is my mind actually. It's telling me to act like this. It's like telling me to send this email. It's telling me to send this angry text. It's telling me to be pissed off with this person. It's telling me to react like this. It's telling me to get jealous. But actually, no, that's my mind. No, I need to step away. I need to take a break. I need to detach myself. I'm not the mind. That's just my mind. Right? So your higher self takes over. So that's the business of the mind. So now, okay, that's all well and good. So you know what success is, you know the soul, how to act in this world, and you know actually how to deal with the mind. But all of us are actually, what are we really looking for in our deepest of deepest senses? We're looking for love, right? It actually is all about love. And it's not just about the love that we have, but actually the intention of that love. The chance to love and to be loved exists no matter where you are. So in the next 6 chapters, Krishna talks about divine love. The Bhagavad Gita is split into 3. How to live is the beginning first 6 chapters. How to love is the middle 6. And how to let go is the last 6. Right? So the love is like a sandwich. You know when you have a cheese sandwich, the most important part is in the middle. So the cheese is in the middle, because you call it a cheese sandwich. So this is what it's telling you. It's a love book, right? There's love's in the middle. And how do we awaken divine love? Right? This is the thing that it talks about. This is a really nice verse. Somebody wants to read it out? Yeah.
If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it.
So we hear from the Bhagavad Gita that it's not about the action, right? We can do many actions in love. We can do many actions for God. We can do many actions for each other. But it's about the intention of the action, right? What actions are we performing and how do we cultivate that action? And our actions are ultimately, how do we connect with love? How do we get love within the heart? If you want to know how, or test or theorize how what divine love is, or how much of your relationship is on a spiritual level, here's like a little formula. They say you have 4 kinds of love, 3 kinds of love: physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Now for each of these you want to ask yourself these questions. One is, what is the vision of that relationship? It could be with God, it could be with people. Like, how do I view that relationship? Do I view it as an order supplier? Do I view it as something selfless? Like, how do I view that relationship? The second thing is asking, what's the goal of that relationship? What's the purpose? Is it to get deep satisfaction? Is it to give? Is it to connect on a higher level? And the last one is, what is your role? What role do you play in that relationship? So this is reawakening that divine love. And how do we reawaken that divine love? The example is given is when we connect with the divine, when we connect with Krishna, when we connect with the Supreme, it's like watering the tree, right? When you water the roots of the tree, what happens? Nourishes the tree blossoms, right? So when you connect with the divine, this is what it's doing, right? And that's how everything and every part of your life will flourish. But if you don't do that, obviously what happens? The tree dies. So like God is like oxygen. You can't see Him, but you can't live without Him. It's anonymous. Maybe somebody want to read this verse out as well? Yes.
Know that all opulent, beautiful and glorious creation spring from my mouth, spring from but a spark of light.
So we're saying actually connecting with the Supreme is like watering the root. And what we hear is God is not just somewhere far away, on heaven, sitting on a throne, maybe with a beard. No, God is alive. God is attractive. We see the qualities of God, and when we see the beautiful things around us, it helps us think of God. Krishna means all attractive. God is affectionate. He's loving, He's caring. And most of all, He's active. So you can feel God's presence in your life if you connect with it deeply. You'll see it. You'll see the hand of God. There's a nice story where somebody asked one of the Swamis, like, have you ever seen God before? You keep talking about God. Have you ever seen God before? And the Swami replied, I've never seen God before, but I've seen the hand of God many times. So God is alive. He's active in your life. You just have to tune in. Just tune into that right frequency, like you used to have in the radios. Tune into that right FM, and then you'll see it. You'll experience it. If you don't believe me, try it. Give it a try. See what happens. The next thing we learn, so we've got connecting. You've identified success. You're the soul. You know how to live in this world through karma yoga. You've managed to focus with the mind. Now you know what love is, and actually watering the root gives you love of everything else. And now, as we come into the end, we hear about energy. Reconfiguring energy. How many of you walking here today felt different types of energy as you were walking here? Right? Most of you. Some things you were drawn to made me think, oh, what's that? And some things you were repelled with. Right? Successful people are simply those who have successful habits. Right? Different energies, different habits. Our thoughts lead to actions. Actions lead to habits. Habits lead to character. And character leads to destiny. What's really interesting is at the middle of this is habits, right? How can we cultivate good habits? We all have good habits and bad habits, right? And it's categorized that all our habits and action can be both in goodness and passion. So there's concept of three modes of material nature. Does anybody know how many verses are dedicated from the Bhagavad Gita on the three modes of material nature? 100. Okay. You guys are experts. Can somebody want to read this verse? Anyone?
O son of Bharata, the mode of godliness conditions one to happiness, passion condition one to future action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness.
Thank you. So we see this concept of the modes of material nature, the energies, different energies, and everything can be categorized in these three modes. Our thoughts, our actions, everything we do. Parenting, driving, eating, what we eat, how we eat, our work, everything can be categorized in these three modes: goodness, passion, or ignorance. And we can see that actually there's the goodness and passion and ignorance inside, and that affects our external, our environment, and then our environment can also affect our internal. So if we're in an environment of mode of passion, we'll take in the mode of passion in our mind. Our consciousness will become that. If we have the mode of passion on the outside, the same is true. So those of you who don't know the three modes, ignorance is something that is bad now, but actually is bad later. So it's just very dark, bad for you now, bad for you later. Drinking and smoking, drugs, etc. It's just, you just know it's going to be bad for you. The mode of passion, it feels good now, but it's bad for you later. That chocolate cake, or that thing that you really like, but it's bad for you. Or that relationship, where actually it's just temporary, or it's not going to go anywhere. It's bad for you, but the mode of goodness is difficult at the beginning, but actually it's good for you later. So like going to the gym, meditating, exercising, that's the mode of goodness. So everything can be done in these three modes. What happens is when you live your life in the mode of goodness, it gives you a natural happiness, right? Even though it's hard, but naturally you'll get happy. And you'll have better relationships, better health, better character, and things will just be better overall. But depending on our disposition, like what's our natural state, okay? So our inclination. So it's like when you have a road, a road is inclined in a certain way, right? If it's downhill, when you put water in it, it goes downhill. Now what's happened is most of our inclinations are negative. So we end up going downhill naturally, or we end up going towards the negative, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. But if we can reset that, change that, change our trajectory, change the way we're going to the mode of goodness, then the water flows in that way. So all of our habits, everything we do, all our actions goes into the mode of goodness. I don't know, are we at time? 5 minutes. Okay, good. So perfect. Going to the end. So then we talk about re-entering life. So this is the last part. So we've talked about, okay, so you're the soul, you know what success is, you know how to live in the world, you know the mind, you know about love, you know about energies, how to live. Now what do you do with it all? Life is actually about service. So Rabindranath Tagore, he says, I slept and I dreamt that life was joy. I woke up and I saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. So when we put all of these things together, what it ultimately comes down to, and the Bhagavad Gita tells us, is life is about service. Now whether you like it or not, you're serving. You know, you're either serving your children, you're serving your partner, you're serving as work. Every time we're just serving. But if we can have that consciousness of giving back and serving for a higher purpose, then our life is complete and we've reached our perfection. So we're re-entering life through the idea of service. Does anybody want to read this final verse? Yeah, Taran?
My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt and am prepared to act according to your instructions.
Thank you, very nice. So Arjuna says, he says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, okay, I've understood what you've said. Now I'm ready to serve as a warrior. Because I understand, before I didn't want to fight. But because of this wisdom you gave me, because of this knowledge you gave me, it's opened up my consciousness. And it's made me realize that life is about service. You know, if you can center your life around service, you will be happy. You will have a purpose. You'll give back. You won't have any regrets. You know, if you can conceptualize all of these things, amalgamate it actually, how can I give back? How can I give back in the best way possible? How can I use my unique skills, my unique talents? Arjuna was a warrior. And his service was to fight. And that's what he was doing. Right? And you might have a different part or a different purpose. Whatever your purpose is, use your purpose in service. Right? And sometimes we might have to do things that we don't like to do. But it's service. And there's nothing more valuable than having service. They say if you have service, you're actually very fortunate. So feel the gratitude when you are serving. And naturally, I think recently, on Sunday, we were at the temple and we were cooking for 100 people. There's a few of us here in the room that were there. And I was speaking to Sham and he was just saying, how's your time? How was your first time in the kitchen? And he was saying he had a great time, he really enjoyed serving. And it was just blissful, giving back. And some of you do Food for Life, some of you do different acts of service. If you can center your life in that way, where you are serving and your consciousness is always that, then that's the pinnacle of what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. But understanding what is the right service, how to perform that in the right consciousness, and it'll be difficult. Things can be hard when you're serving, but it's a great learning lesson. So these were the things that we talked about and we discussed. We redefined success. We rediscovered our identity, we repositioned our lifestyle, remolded our mind, understood what awakening love was, reconnecting with God, the Supreme. We reconfigured our energies, and from that we can re-enter life. We see life in a different perspective. We see life in a different lens. You know, you have the opportunity to do this. It's right there. Like, it's literally right there in front of you. And it will change your life. So all of these books that we've discussed, they all originate from the Bhagavad Gita. So why not just go to the source? With spiritual development, self-development without spiritual development, they both go hand in hand, you know. And this is what the world is looking for. And many times when we try and learn, I don't know if anyone's done any academic exams. I had to do 100 exams to get my degree. I actually still get nightmares every April. I actually wake up thinking I need to study. You know, it happens to me every year. It's like something like PTSD or something. And
I missed the exam. It's already late. Not entered the hall. I keep getting these.
you keep getting that one, huh? Wow.
I missed the exam. I forgot about my exam.
Yeah. It's the early hours of the morning you wake up and you're just like, whoa. So normally they say when we learn, like learning's linear, right? Like the more you learn, the more knowledge you become, the more information you get. Right? That's material wisdom. Okay? Superficial. Spiritual wisdom is actually like a spiral. So you're learning the same things over and over and over and over and over. But what's happening is you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you get deeper and deeper, you're getting more and more to the essence. So they say you should learn this wisdom repeatedly. So keep reading, keep coming back, keep understanding, keep attending Think Gita Wisdom Talks. You should attend it broadly. You should understand it broadly. So read different literature. Connect with different people. Attend different programs. You know, read it broadly. Read it discursively. So have questions. Ask, discuss, challenge, discuss with people. Association is such an important thing. Now we have this thing called circles, Think Gita circles. I don't know if anybody part of circles? A few of you, yeah. So you have the space where we discuss that knowledge. And also just apply it practically. Okay, so Raj just said this, like, you know, lifestyle, goodness, passion, ignorance. Try it. You know, Raj is saying chant, meditate, you know, associate with people. Give it a try. What you've read, practice it. See if it works or not, you know. Without trying, how do you know if it works? And if you can do these things, what happens is you keep going round and round and round until you get to the essence. And when you get to the essence, you realize it's so simple. It's actually really simple. But it's so simple that you might just miss it. So, this is the truth. Is there any questions? Anyone have any questions about today or Bhagavad Gita?